Test. Test, test.
Now, west, I mean, 2 months after that.
I was gonna wait till Friday and I'm gonna tell them at least cancel the room for Friday and I'll see. I don't know. I still want to go, but Matt was like, don't be silly and get on the road with ice.
Save it. Save it's going.
I know y'all got busy schedules and stuff, but wow, you're a little short this year. Gotta get up there. Anyway, I get we'll figure it out. There we go. All right. Well, hope everybody had a good year, new year. Wonderful. It's a really nice new room, right? So, all right. So, I guess we'll go ahead and jump in and, I guess the first order of business, we'll have an attendance report for today's board meeting.
So we have 4 or 5 members in present now, and then online we have Lisa Hamilton and then Jack Williams.
Okay, good. All right. So we're gonna do the program reports. Program reports, child welfare.
There you go. Hey, Chairman, how you doing, sir? Good to see you. You too. We ready?
Yes, sir. Jump in.
Nice to be with you. Good afternoon. My name is Lon Roberts, and I'm the new Deputy Commissioner of Child Welfare. To give a little background about myself. I know I've met several of you before, but this will be a opportunity to formally introduce myself and to chance to connect with those I've not met before. I'm a Georgia native, grew up in Cobb County, was born in Mableton, went to South Cobb High School, currently reside in Douglasville, Georgia, went to Kennesaw State University, where I studied public and social services and psychology. And I joined DFACS in 1997. I started with the state in 1996 in mental health. I have been in several roles with the state, started as a case manager, a supervisor, been a supervisor, been a consultant, county director, administrator, field program specialist, regional director, deputy field operations director, deputy chief of staff of DFACS, and now currently I'm the the deputy commissioner. Formerly, I was the assistant deputy commissioner, so hopefully bring a lot of experience to the position. Again, it's an honor to serve DFACS and DHS and Georgia's children and families in this new role, and I look forward to working with you as we move forward. So thank you. Today, on the slide deck, we're going to share some information, some observances, events, and initiatives currently taking place in child welfare. We'll start with DSNAP. I'd like to briefly discuss DHS's DSNAP efforts during October and November. My colleague John Hallman will be providing a more detailed overview of DSNAP in his presentation, but I wanted to highlight our staff volunteer numbers and participation. With each phase, we had approximately 1,000 DHS employees working on DSNAP operations. We had 2,880 unique employees working across the 4 phases, which included 471 child welfare staff, which is approximately 19% of the child welfare staff were involved. Our DSNAP operation was a great success, and it wouldn't have been possible without the hardworking and dedicated volunteers. And again, John Hallman will be talking more about that, but it was a great success. I'd like to touch on National Adoption Month. During November, DFACS celebrated National Adoption Awareness Month, a time to celebrate families formed through adoption, recognize the individuals who assist them in their journey, and promote the urgent need for adoptive families and their children and youth in care. On November 20th, DFACS celebrated families who opened their homes to adoption, and DHS and DFACS staff who assist in finalizing adoptions in a virtual celebration. If you weren't able to join that event, I encourage you to visit our YouTube channel where you can watch recorded celebration. In December, DHS staff and DHS board members met, and advisory board met, joined Governor Kemp and First Lady Marty Kemp at the state capitol for a photo opportunity for this year's National Adoption Month proclamation. Beautiful photo and great opportunity for everyone involved. I want to thank those board members who were able to join us for the photo, and I look forward to being able to share additional photo opportunities throughout the year. We'll talk on Clark's Christmas Kids. For 34 years, DFACS has been partnering with Clark Howard, WSB Radio, Walmart, and St. Vincent de Paul to provide gifts for children and youth in foster care through Clark's Christmas Kids program. During this year's gift drive, over 23,500 gifts were collected, supporting nearly 8,000 children in foster care. We thank those who donated or joined us at the in-person shopping event during December. Because of you, our children and youth in care had a special and memorable Christmas. Lastly, we'll talk about the CFSR, Child and Family Services Review. I want to give an update on this Child and Family Services Review, also known as the CFSR. They're periodic reviews conducted by the Children's Bureau, our federal partners, to evaluate state child welfare systems. In August 2024, the Children's Bureau provided us a final report that highlighted areas for improvement in our state. Since then, we've been actively working on a CFSR improvement plan known as a PIP, Program Improvement Plan. The PIP is designed to create a lasting and statewide change in areas identified during the CFSR. The PIP includes case reviews to track performance and safety, permanency, and well-being, commitment by DFACS, courts, and system partners to implement specific practice changes, and a monitoring and evaluation plan to observe improvements to the child welfare system and to the child and family outcomes. As part of the PIP creation, we held focus groups throughout September and October for DFACS staff, service providers, placement providers, foster caregivers, court-appointed special advocates, CASAs, birth parents, and additional child welfare stakeholders. These focus groups were pivotal opportunities for us to collect honest and confidential feedback on how we can improve together. Our teams have been working extremely hard to develop our PIP, which we initially submitted on November 18th, 2024. The Children's Bureau reviewed it, and we met with them December 10th, and we're going to submit an updated PIP draft on February the 10th. So it'll be a back and forth process until we get everyone is in agreement with it. Feds are in agreement with it. But we submitted the initial draft, and now we're working to submit a second draft in February the 10th. Of course, we'll talk more about that as we get, probably in the spring, when we get the final approval for that. Thank you for your time and your support, and I'll now open up to any questions you may have.
What was the main area of improvement? I mean, I'm sitting here trying to read this, but the main thing that said y'all need to do better at.
I think always you want to look at engagement, parental engagement, engaging with families, and you want to look at getting children out of foster care timely. And so we did have success early. They identified in the PIP children who are in care 20 to 23 months, they're reaching timely. That first was identified as an issue, but since then they reran the statewide data indicators. That's actually found to be a strength for us. That came off. But permanency, and I think really when you talk with the federal partners, it's always about engagement with parents, birth parents, the collective family, and the community partners. So I think we can, the cornerstone of our work is working with people. And so we can engage, that's where you do your safety assessment. That's how you look at well-being and your educational assessment. So I think that would be my answer. That's just engagement, strong engagement with not just the family, but with the community. And that's really where we're going to.
And the best way that's measured is what?
You have measurement for every child every month or parent every month. You have measures for that engagement, and they're both. There's metrics. So are we making engagement? Normally that's our strength. We're seeing the children, we're seeing the families. Is the quality there? Is the purposefulness there? So I think that's the challenge we want to bring up. We're seeing the families, we're in front of the children, we're in front of the families, but we're making the best of that opportunity where we're really engaging with them, asking the right questions, making sure we're covering all the different behavioral changes and safety management. So really at the core is what we're doing, safety management and behavioral change through case planning. Are we doing that? And are we capturing that in our narratives, in our documentation? So there's always that risk or that challenge of we're doing the work and we document it well too. So,
right.
So I think I think if we get in front of people, we're in front of the family, in front of the children, how we continue to increase the engagement. So it's not just a friendly visit, it's a purposeful visit and capture it in documentation. Yes, sir.
Cool. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. So now I guess next is John Holman for the Office of Family Independence.
Sir, morning. Or afternoon. Yeah.
Afternoon, yeah.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. I'm John Holman. I'm the Deputy Commissioner over the Office of Family Independence. And today for my report out, I'm going to be talking a lot about DSNAP. That was a pretty big thing that happened. And on the next slide, I'm going to apologize in advance. I have more slides than I'll be able to cover today. But Mr. Barbie had asked me to try to include some of the personal touch to the DSNAP program. I've added that kind of towards the end. And so I'll try to talk about as much as I can in the time that I have, but be respectful of everyone else's time too. I've left some stuff that I may ask you to just take a look at yourselves and be in the meeting too. But when we last met, I believe it was October, and the hurricane had happened, and we were planning the DSNAP program, which was a crazy time, to be honest, for me. You know, we had done a DSNAP before, a big DSNAP back for Hurricane Michael, but that was around, I think it was like 20, 22 counties. And this one ended up being 55 counties.
Wow.
So historic level effort to do the disaster SNAP program. I kind of went over some of the basics about it, but just to hit on it again, you know, to be eligible, a county had to have a presidential declaration of individual assistance. And then that allows us to give 1 month's worth of SNAP benefits to people who are not in the SNAP program. We're also able to take people who are in the SNAP program. You don't just get SNAP or you don't get SNAP. It's a spectrum, or there's a budget that determines how many benefits or your benefit level in the SNAP program. We're able to raise everyone in the program up to the maximum allotment per month for that single month. And then the big thing you think about at DSNAP is we brought in additional people from outside of the program and gave them benefits. So if a tree fell in your house and you have to pay for that to get removed, you know, some people are having to choose, do I get the tree off my house or do I feed my family? So DSNAP helps them feed their family and get the tree off their house is kind of the idea. On the next slide, you'll see a map. I think maps are very powerful to understand kind of how things went and how big of an effort it was. You can see it was, you know, almost, even though it was 55 counties, which is only 1/3 of the counties in Georgia, it was, you know, it looks like almost half of the state when you see it on a map like this. And we had to break it into 4 phases just because of the number of people who were potentially eligible. You know, back in October, I was probably talking about how we were trying to guess how many people were going to show up. Because you never know. We estimated that there would be over 500,000 households eligible. And so that was a crazy amount of people to have to serve in, you know, we have 6 days per phase. And so we broke it up into 4 phases so that we could staff it appropriately. Lon hit on it a little bit in his presentation, but we had about 1,000 to 1,200 DHS employees working each phase. So that's a ton of people, even when we did break it up into 4 phases. But we started in the kind of Savannah area. Then we moved, phase 2 was, that's the green area you see on your map. Then we moved down to South Georgia, which is the yellow area on your map. And then we went up around the Augusta area and a little bit below that. And then we did the area between, which is in red there. I've got, I wanted to hit on just to thank, honestly, and acknowledge on the next slides some of the physical locations, or sorry, let me hit this real quick too. So you're right, go one more. Just talk about the scale again. We ended up serving 177,000 households, which represents about 400,000 individuals. If you add all the benefit numbers together at the bottom, we were able to push out $125 million to communities in need after the disaster. So that was really amazing. And, you know, can't thank the people who work this agency enough, the dedication of the workers. It was long days. You know, it was 12-hour days most of the time. And we had a lot of folks volunteer for every phase and show up for a full month of work nonstop. So it was a really incredible effort from everybody involved. Now on the next slide, you'll see kind of the information about each phase. And I'll go through this kind of quickly and try to leave some time for y'all to ask questions. But just to acknowledge where this took place and share some of the information about that. We had 2 locations in Chatham County, which is where Savannah is. We used the Savannah Civic Center. And Georgia Southern let us use their Armstrong Center, which is on their campus a little further out of the city. In Savannah, and then in Liberty County, we used the First Baptist Church in Hinesville. Phase 2 was our biggest phase, if you count by the number of counties that were included. This is the South Georgia area, so we were spread out, you know, across. We had 1 location in Camden or in Coffee County, then Camden County, then Lowndes County, and then Colquitt. So you know, it's a big geographic area if you think about it. But Camden County, the Evergreen Missionary Baptist Church allowed us to use their facility, which was very nice. Coffee County also had a big church that they let us use. Colquitt County, we actually used the Sunbelt Agricultural Expo Center, which was an interesting experience. That is, you felt being below the gnat line at that location is what maybe I'll say. And then Lowndes County, the Victory Baptist Church let us use their facility there too, which was great. Phase 3, we went into, this is kind of the Augusta area, and then a little bit south of there, we were at the Southside Elementary School in Augusta, and then another one we just called the Wheeler Road location because it was, honestly an open office space.
Yeah.
Off of Wheeler Road in Augusta, which is pretty centrally located to a lot of things, high traffic area. Why we picked that one. Then Washington County let us use the recreation center. And I'm trying to, sorry, this is a lot. I'm just trying to thank all these people for letting us use these facilities. We ended up breaking the plumbing at the Washington County Rec Center, but fixed it. On the next slide, just to close out kind of the locations. In Toombs County, we used the First United Methodist Church. That location was great, and that congregation, great to welcome us there. They actually let us use the sanctuary because it was very cold. And so instead of when they saw people waiting outside in the cold, they actually let us into their very nice sanctuary. In Lawrence County, we used the Civitas Fairgrounds, and then Candler County, we actually used the National Guard Armory, which was another interesting place. So we were running DSNAP during the election period, so a lot of the good public buildings that can hold a lot of people were occupied. So we had to get creative in a lot of instances, and a lot of churches really stepped up to give us a place to be. But I wanted to spend a lot of time though, I wanted to thank those folks and thank them for letting us use their locations. All of them worked out really well. But really, talking about the staffing was really just great. The people, and I thank, Chairman Smith and Dave Barbie both got a chance to come out and see it in person.
Yeah, great.
It really, I think, one thing for the staff that I've included in some of the next slides go through kind of the staff experience. I try to capture, what people were going through. The clients obviously had something terrible happen to them, but a lot of our workers live in these areas too. I found out at one of the DSNAP locations while I was there, one of the workers was actually living out of their car because their house had been destroyed in the hurricane. And when we found out, obviously we helped that person and provided them, but they were so dedicated to their job and wanted to help the people in their community so much. They were showing up for a 12-hour shift, not knowing where they're going to sleep that night. So it was really just you do a lot of stuff. And I think people, with our remote work model, which is very effective, and don't want to move away from that, but it gave a lot of people within OFI and a lot of the volunteers in child welfare and child support and aging and everybody kind of stepped up, and everyone got to have that face-to-face interaction and immediately provide relief to somebody in a bad situation. So I think it really, a lot of the stories that we heard, it really rejuvenated a lot of people and reminded them why they do what they do, which was really great. It wasn't without challenges. It was long days, hard stuff. Some of the stuff that went really well, we had implemented a new system, a disaster SNAP system, with some of the funding that FNS made available to us following the COVID-19 pandemic. And we got to use it, and it worked really well. And I'd actually purchased some iPads to build some kiosks in our county offices on the model of the library kiosks that I presented on, I think, to this group a while ago, and the stands hadn't showed up yet. So I just took all those iPads and deployed them out and used the new DSNAP system on the iPad. So worked really well to get people through a little faster. That worked really well about vests and hats for everyone, which if you keep going through the pictures, you'll maybe see some folks. And these are the things, I won't be able to read all the experiences, but I do encourage y'all to look through them, to hear the personal stories of people. You can see the hat. There's me wearing one of the vests and hats. That was really good for identifying staff from clients, just because there's so many people, and these are just, clients are just like you and me. So being able to pick out who the workers were, we got a lot of praise from FNS for both the iPads and the vests. We also, one thing that happened during COVID is FNS, who's our federal regulator, started allowing the interviews to be conducted over the phone. So that was a huge benefit. We had about 500 people every day just available to take applications and do interviews over the phone. And that really relieved a lot of the pressure from the physical locations, which I think was some of the challenge in during Hurricane Michael, they were just overwhelmed by the amount of people. But that virtual or hybrid operation of the DSNAP really helped lift it up in those things. So challenges that we had: travel. It's really hard to book that many hotel rooms on short notice. There are not very many hotels in Toombs County either. So we had some folks had to drive a little further away. One thing I learned, there are a lot of deer in South Georgia.
Mhm.
I think every day somebody had a run-in with a deer. And
Who won?
Yeah.
no one won. No one won those encounters. So we actually, lost a couple people. They didn't pass or anything like that, but we had some people that, were in accidents from deer. So travel, getting that all set up, and I'm still kind of answering some emails about how all the travel things work. So learned a little bit from that, and we're going to build on that. The parking was an issue that we overcame or got better at over the time period. Then translation services were also a big challenge. A lot of the areas we talked about are heavily agricultural, where people don't speak English as their first language. And I learned there's a big Creole population in South Georgia as well. So we were able to expand our translation services through our available vendors and use the iPads again for like a virtual option. So everybody was really good at pivoting and adapting. If you keep going through the pictures, and these are the things I want y'all to, I'm running out of time. And I used your picture. Oh, she left. But that's our HR deputy commissioner. A lot of folks in leadership showed up. Our facilities manager was one of our navigators at the Toombs County Church. As I mentioned, we had 2 board members from DHS and 1 from DFACS come to see the Augusta Southside elementary school location, which I thought was a great location. It used to be a DFACS office.
Was a good location.
Yeah, but it was really great. And, I really do encourage y'all to go through the stories that we included in the slides to really hear from the people who are just, I think very tired after doing the work, but reinvigorated in the mission of DHS. And, it was really just amazing how big of an impact we were able to have in just, a month's time. So I'll stop there. There's a lot to it. And I tried to put as much as I could for y'all to take away, and happy to leave. I wanted to leave a couple of minutes for y'all to ask questions if you have any about how things went.
Was it all federal money?
So the benefits were all federal.
Okay.
So the administrative part of it, though, like some of those locations I did have to pay rent for, and like we ran over hotels, and feeding people, like we had to, feed them lunch, and that's a 50-50 split between the state and the federal government. So we're still kind of figuring out what that total bill will be. But I do hope that, I think we'll be okay. In the legislature and governor's office have talked about that being something they address very early in legislative session is hurricane relief around that. But that is the federal government does split that with us 50-50.
Well, John, you did a great job with all the coordination. I know the last board meeting that we had, you were telling us about it. And as a person in the state, I didn't even know we did that kind of stuff to help. I mean, I know we do food stamps, all that, but in an emergency like this, the state employees really stepped up through your leadership, and the people that you had leading in all the different areas is to be commended. So thank you for the hard work.
Thank you.
And handling the logistics of all those people was huge. I mean, it was. I'm saying, how y'all were in Augusta for what, a week?
Yeah.
You were there for
6
a week.
days.
6 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then you moved that from there to the force phase, which is in the counties between Statesboro and Augusta. And to move all that, get all those people logistically in that location to the next. Awesome job. Take care of that.
Yeah, it was a team effort. Lon's folks deserve a lot of credit too. The folks in leadership and child welfare really stepped up and helped us out
Good.
So,
Well, next time you need hotel rooms, just call Barbie. It's.
Yeah, we'll take care. If we can handle the masters, we can handle this.
Great, thank you so much.
thank you.
All right, so next Division of Aging, Deputy Commissioner Mary Lee Boatright Quinn.
Well, actually, Mary Lee is not here today, so
Oh.
I'll be stepping in for her.
Okay, good. What's your name?
So my name is Brianna Sims. I
Brianna.
am the Deputy Commissioner of State Programs. So as you know, that includes the Division of Aging Services, the Division of Child Support Services, as well as the Office of Refugee Services.
Okay.
So just to give you a little background about myself, because I haven't been able to sit at this table yet with you all. I have been born and raised in Lithonia, Georgia. I graduated from the University of Georgia. As soon as I graduated in 2014, moved straight into state government, worked for the Secretary of State's office, in the executive office, as well as in elections, bounced around a lot within elections, was able to help implement the new voting system, held training coordinator positions, deputy director positions, all kinds of things across the elections division that we have. And then came over here in 2021. I took over Tangela Gray's former position. And was first tasked with helping our Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Sunny Patel, with the new move from 2 Peachtree over here to 47 Trinity. So both of us headed that together and made that possible. I was actually able to actually draw out the layout that we actually have downstairs. So yeah, so I feel like I've done some good things so far here at DHS, but glad to be able to be in front of you all and, you know, be able to share some things about the Division of Aging Services.
Wonderful.
All right. So I'll go ahead and hop in. And today we're going to highlight some key focus areas for us. And then also I'll be providing some data on adult protective services in our public guardianship office and their workloads that they're currently dealing with. So we have 2 rather large projects that are ongoing right now, and they'll be ongoing for the next few years with updates and publications of new regulations for our aging services and elder protections. So you may have heard about the Older Americans Act final rule that was published last year, February 14th of 2024, and made effective March 15th of 2024. And it is requiring all states to come into compliance with that new final rule by October 1st of 2025 this year. As you may have heard, those regulations haven't been changed in almost 30 years. So it is going to take a lot for us to change our policies and procedures to get up to date and get in compliance with the new regulations. However, all states and as well as our national association already know with that small timeline that states are possibly going to have to submit a CAP, which is a corrective action plan, to assist us for some or if not all of the new regulations, the new requirements that we have to come in compliance with. However, with DAS, we have decided to contract with one of our federal partners, Advancing States, for technical assistance to help us with coming into compliance. So it's definitely going to require a full overhaul of our full policy and procedures manual, as well as an amendment and updates to our state plan. So we kicked off our technical assistance with Advancing States back in December, and we plan to do a 3-day intensive with them in February to complete a full policy analysis. Even though if we're our focus is, of course, getting into compliance and making sure that we're in compliance with the new regulations, but as well, we want to take this opportunity to make sure that we have the most efficient and flexible policies to continue our programs and provide the best quality services and programs that we can while we are able to make these changes now. Our plan is to prioritize the items that need to be included in the amendment first, the amendment to the state plan. And we do anticipate having to submit a CAP for certain parts of the final rule, but Advancing States, our federal partners, are definitely supporting us and helping us. They already understand that with that small time crunch, a lot of states are going to have to submit a cap. So that's the first project is the Older Americans Act final rule. We also received new regulations for adult protective services as well in 2024. Now this is the first time that we've received national requirements. So we're hoping with those national requirements, of course, it will help make adult protective service operations consistent across the country. But as well, we're hoping that we'll be able to get some robust federal funding as well, possibly, because currently this program is almost entirely state funded. So hopefully we'll be able to get some federal funding with the new regulations going out as well. And we have to come in compliance with the new adult protective services regulations by May 8th of 2028. So we do have some more time for those regulations. And our biggest concern is the area regarding the requirement of response time. And in our next slide, I'll cover a little bit more on that. So for adult protective services, with the new regulations, the two biggest impacts that we see is first, APS has to create a standalone state plan. It has to be completely separate from our current state plan for the Division of Aging, and it has to be updated every 5 years. Now, we don't believe that we'll have an issue with meeting that requirement. It's just that it is going to take some manpower to start focusing on that state plan, and making sure that we have time to draft everything and get the feedback that we need on that state plan way before the deadline. Like I said, the biggest concern is our requirement for response time. So the new rule states that for non-immediate risk cases, we have to respond with no more than 7 calendar days. And currently our state policy is that we have to respond no more than 10 calendar days. And unfortunately, currently with the staffing that we currently have, we're not able to meet that 10-day requirement on 100% of our investigations. Now we are meeting it on a large number, but we will need some assistance to be able to meet it for 100% of our investigations across the board.
Meaning more headcount?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. And I have some more data on that in our next slides to kind of explain the reasons for that. All right, so what you're taking a look at right now is a graph that is going to show the total number of reports that we get for APS, as well as the actual reports that we can actually investigate. So the data for fiscal year 25, it is a little off based off the data that we have today because this was pulled back from before December was finalized. However, if you look at the data for state fiscal year 24, we received 44,522 reports of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And of those, 64% resulted in an investigation. And as you can see, for state fiscal year 25, we're continuing to trend in that same percentage as far as the number of A&E reports that result in an investigation. So our total number of reports has continued to increase year after year, as we've seen over the past 5 years. And we don't believe that that's going to change with our growing older population. And I just want to give kudos to our central intake unit because they handle all of these, this high volume of reports each year efficiently and effectively, and as best as they can. So we can go to the next slide. So here you'll actually see the percentage of APS investigations that we do initiate and have that first response within 10 days. So for state fiscal year 24, we succeeded with that 73% of the time. And so far, from December 1st, we are at 79%. So our staff is trying their hardest to meet those deadlines. However, as I've said before, with the new regulations, it is moving up to no more than 7 days. So we will have to update, of course, all our policies, our trainings and things like that to meet the new federal regulations. And our biggest concern is our current staffing, because like I said, currently we're not able to meet that 10-day requirement on 100% of our investigations. And we may struggle if we aren't able to get additional staffing to come in compliance by that May 2028 date.
How many
And I-
more people do you need?
Yeah.
So we put in a budget impact statement request, and off the top of my head, I don't have the numbers, but I can pull it for you really quickly.
Sure.
But we did ask for a large amount of adult protective services workers. For PGO, is definitely a smaller unit, so it's a very smaller number.
How many people are doing it now?
Right now, we have 185
Caseworkers?
caseworkers, investigators for APS. And then there's 42 workers for PGO. And if you go to the next, I can kind of give a little more data on the caseload situations in there.
So we know 79% were completed in 10 days. Do we know if the 7-day was the current?
What that would look like
So how many, do we know how many were completed in?
within 7 days? I don't,
Yeah.
we can pull that information. I can provide it to you. But we haven't taken a look at that yet because we're just, trying to cram and see exactly everything we need to change with these new regulations. But I can definitely get that information for you on what we're beating with 7 days right now. Yeah. But if you take a look at the graph that we have here, this kind of shows our adult protective services caseload ratio. And as of December 31st, our adult protective service workers are working 6,905 active investigations, and it is up from last month. And currently, the caseload ratio for our budgeted positions is 1 to 37. However, the caseload ratio for the actual positions that we have filled is 1 to 41. So, and the target national recommendation is 1 to 15. So we're well over double what the recommended caseload ratio is for our caseworkers currently. And as of December 31st, we only have 16 APS investigator vacancies and 3 supervisor vacancies. So it's not a large number of vacancies, but because our team is so small and robust, it hurts us tremendously when we have these vacancies here. And as we've seen in the past, our tenure data shows that we lose 25% of our new hires within 6 months. And we feel like it's because of the high caseloads that we have currently. Next. So this graph shows the caseloads for our public guardianship office. And currently, as of December 31st, there are 1,442 people under DHS guardianship. And for our guardianship case managers, for budgeted positions, the caseload ratio is 1 to 34. But for the positions that we have currently that are filled, it's 1 to 36. And based off the target caseload for the national recommendation is 1 to 20. So it's slightly different from APS. And currently we only have 2 positions that are vacant in that program. So you can see that our caseloads and workloads are continuing to increase, and we haven't received additional staffing in a few years. So we will really need some help in that department when it comes to trying to get in compliance with the new APS regulations by May 2028.
When you say you lose 25% of the new caseworkers in the first, how many months?
6 months.
In the first 6 months, how does that compare to other caseworkers in the other departments?
I'm not sure, but I know I've heard from other departments that they do have a large turnover as well. I mean, I think it's very similar to CPS because we kind of do similar work, but just different communities or buckets of people that we're working for. Both still 2 vulnerable populations, and the work is hard. I mean, it's intensive, and especially with the high caseloads, you can understand that it comes to the point where now we have supervisors that may be taking on some type of caseloads or trying to do those initial responses that we need to meet.
Is it because of the nature of an older person? And trying to get through, trying to understand it, trying to.
Well, I think it's a mix of all of that, that as well, but as well as I think people don't understand that we're not just serving elder adults, it's adults, period. So we do have some, younger adults that we serve as well with mental issues and things like that. So it's just a wide range and variety of issues that we encounter, and the work is hard. I mean, it's a lot, and especially with our caseloads being high for those individuals, they get kind of overwhelmed and burnt out.
Word of mouth. All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, for instance, with our PGO clients, and our PGO caseworkers, the people that are the clients that are assigned to them, I know they have to make some type of contact at least once a month to see their individual. So you can see if they have 36 individuals that they have to serve, how hard that may be. Every day they're putting boots to the ground trying to serve our community. So
But a contact could be a phone call too.
yes,
Not just.
it could, but they also have to have to show up for certain doctor's appointments and things like that, depending on what the client needs and the services that they need from us. So yeah, a little help with staffing, increased staffing would definitely help us to be able to address the high case loads. But of course, it's a number of things that play into our turnover and things like that, as other divisions see as well.
Why, all right, the government we have to change this. Why is the caseload? What was the reason? You may not be able to answer this. Why was the reason dropping 10 to 7? Why? What's the more? We'll be able to give them more attention, or 10 is too many. Can't take care of what.
Well, this isn't something that
This is something the feds
our federal partners put those in place. And like I said, these regulations hadn't been changed in over 30 years. So I think it was just a lot of catch up of trying to clean up a lot of things that probably should have been cleaned up a long time ago, and updates that should have happened a long time ago.
What I guess what's to clean up? What we're trying to clean up?
I just serving our clients quicker, having that initial contact a lot quicker than what we normally do now. I'm not exactly sure what the numbers, the response time is in other states. I know Georgia is heading that with how quickly we are able to respond to our clients. I'm not exactly sure. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head when it comes to the other states, but I think that's what it was. It's just that some other states may be struggling worse than what we are, and just trying to get those updates across the board so that we can have some consistency across the country of what APS is able to do, and how quickly they can reach individuals. So the next slide, I wanted to go over some exciting news about some new publications that we have available on the GARD, on the DHS website, on the GARD page. So as you know, Alzheimer's and dementia continues to be a big concern for our aging population. And Georgia has invested in becoming more dementia capable. So we recently contracted with University of Georgia's Carl Vinson Institute to develop a State of Georgia Dementia Report. And per House Bill 571 that passed in 2024, the GARD Advisory Council is required to complete a progress report or a dementia data report every other year in between when the GARD state plan is due. And now that has changed from previous legislation from 2024. That is now 4 years instead of 3. And the next time that is due is in 2027. So what we just published now is that progress report that I was mentioning, that it is required to be submitted to the governor and to the General Assembly for their review. We have an executive summary of the data that we'll be providing to the legislature at the beginning of the 2025 session. And we plan to share the data with our House and Senate health committees as well.
Can you be sure we get a copy of that?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
When is that gonna be out?
It's already available on our website, so I can go ahead and get it printed and
Okay.
get it right over to you
That's
right
good.
after this meeting. But once the report is shared with the legislature, we do intend to come back and do a more detailed report to you all, to the board. But in the meantime, it is available on our DHS website on the GUARD page for right now.
Brian, on this, in terms of the report, are you looking at from the state perspective, like more facilities that can accommodate?
Across the board, yeah, any ways that we can help build our network for dementia care and being able to reach those individuals quickly and more efficiently. We're across the board trying to find ways. And like I said, we have the new dementia team, and that's all they're focused on, is trying to find ways to reach these individuals quickly and efficiently, and finding ways to make us more dementia capable across the state.
Are you gonna be here for a little bit?
Yeah.
I'll talk to you offline.
Yeah. And that's all that I have today. My contact information and Mary Lee Boatwright Quinn's contact information is up on the screen. But if you have any questions, I'm here and ready to answer them.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for your help, Brianna.
Thank you.
All right, so next we got Cal Support Services. Deputy Commissioner. Hello.
Afternoon. Yes, I'd be here with you all.
Yes, you have.
Sarah Hurst, Assistant Deputy Commissioner for Child Support Services. So I know I've met with you all previously, but glad to be here again. January 1st marked 1 year that I've been in this role, and I feel like that time has flown by, but certainly appreciate all the support I've had from everyone. So today I want to share some updates with you all on our end of year performance for federal fiscal year 2024. So the end of the federal fiscal year was actually the end of September, but we finalized our data in October. So just due to timing, this is the next board meeting we've had where we're able to present this. So when we look at the data, it really showed us that it was a year of recovery and overcoming some of the obstacles that were created during and after the pandemic. So we'll take a deep dive into some of the performance metrics, but they really highlight the dedication and effort on the part of our DCSS team. So I'll be sharing some good information on that today. So on the next slide, we'll see just a snapshot of our federal fiscal year performance measures. Starting with current support, just as a reminder, that's calculated by looking at the amount of current support that's collected for families compared to the amount of current support due. And with that measure, we increased by 0.42%. So we were excited about that. Current support can be a very challenging measure to move. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And when you see an increase there, you know, that the whole goal of that measure is to get money into the hands of the families that we serve.
It's 0.42, under 1%.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. With arrears, that is calculated by the number of cases that are received a payment towards arrears compared to the number of cases overall that we have with an arrears balance. And with that measure, we did have a slight decrease of 0.18%. But the performance overall for the year was actually very good when you look back at other years. And we'll go into some more details on that as well. For support orders, this is one I think I touched on a couple of board meetings ago. We were really excited to get back over the 90% mark for this measure. We had dipped below it the last couple of years. So we had an increase here for this measure by 0.86%. And similar to the arrears measure for support orders, this is calculated by looking at the number of cases we have with an order compared to the number of our total case count. And then for paternity, it's calculated a little bit differently, but it is the number of children born out of wedlock with paternity established or acknowledged during the federal fiscal year compared to the number of children who were born out of wedlock the previous federal fiscal year. And on this measure, we did see a decrease here of 1.62%, but we were still able to achieve the 90% requirement and exceed that requirement, which is the federal requirement for paternity established. So on the next few slides, we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into each of these measures, compare our performance in 24 with some prior years. So as I know we've talked about in several other board meetings, especially during the pandemic, there were a lot of different impacts to our performance measures. For current support and arrears, there were some additional collection sources during the pandemic, one being pandemic unemployment benefits, another being stimulus payments that customers received. So we actually saw a positive spike in collections during the, while those extra payments were coming in. And then you can see that we took a dip after those additional payments stopped. In addition, there were a lot of challenges with parents being able to find employment during those pandemic years. And so you can see we've seen an increase starting in 23 and then continuing in 24 with the current support measure as parents have been able to get jobs. We've been able to get income withholding orders in place. Another thing we noticed is just during that time, more parents were kind of changing jobs at a more rapid rate. The job market was really good. And so it can be challenging when you have parents moving from jobs frequently because you get an income withholding order in place and then they move to a new employer and you have to get that income withholding order in place with that second employer. But we were able to successfully end our 2024 year with a current support percentage higher than it has been going back all the way to 2016, excluding those pandemic years where we had those additional payments coming in. And then moving on to arrears. So again, you see the spike there in 2020 when we had a large number of stimulus payments that parents were receiving that we were able to intercept to go towards the arrears that they owed for child support. And then, you know, since that time, we've definitely seen a decrease since those were out of the ordinary payments. But proud to say our performance now, as you can see on the chart, is still above our pre-pandemic levels. We are still seeing some parents doing some late filings of taxes where they are still getting those stimulus payments in their tax refund, and we're able to offset those when that happens if they owe arrears and meet the criteria. In addition, we continue to receive in federal fiscal year 24, the collections were over $51 million. So it's quite significant. Another thing we're seeing is a lot of parents are choosing to pay using electronic or e-wallet payment options. So these are things like Apple Pay, Google Pay, Venmo, and PayPal. And so during 2024, Apple Pay in particular is one of the highest used out of those. And there were a few months where there were close to $1 million of collections throughout the year. So that's something we've seen a trend there of more parents opting to use those types of electronic payment options. So before we move on to the remaining performance measures, I just wanted to share a few additional collection highlights received from our team. Our Savannah office collected over $120,000 from bonus payments issued by the International Longshoremen's Association, and these collections will go out to families on 63 cases. So we're really excited about that and thank them for their work to get those collections. And then our special operations section, Lawrenceville, Cobb, and Valdosta offices, they each received payments varying between $25,000 to $66,000 as a result of various enforcement actions taken on several cases. And these payments included some voluntary payments made by parents in order to have their passports released, as well as lien settlement payments, which resulted in several cases being paid in full. So this was a great outcome for those families that received the payments, and I'm really proud of our team's work to result in those collections. So on the next slide, we'll take a look at our support order performance. So again, for support orders and paternity, the impact during the pandemic was kind of the reverse of what you saw for collections. Starting in 20, you'll see we were on a decline with our support orders, and really this year is the first year we've been able to move in an upward fashion when it comes to this performance. So we've finally been able to gain ground on restoring our performance, and we're in good shape so far this year as well on support orders. So we want to continue to see that go up so we can get back to where we were in 18 and 19 and hopefully surpass those numbers. And then last but not least, paternity. I think I spoke a couple of board meetings ago about where we were. Some of our projections were showing that we might not hit the 90% mark. So we were really excited to meet and exceed that 90% federal requirement. Again, this was a metric that was very greatly hindered during the pandemic. Court closures were a big impact for both some court orders as well as paternity establishment. And additionally, there are an increasing number of children who are being born out of wedlock each year. And so based on the way the paternity establishment measure is calculated, more children being born out of wedlock also means we need to establish paternities on a higher number of cases in order to meet the 90% goal each year. So despite the challenges with this measurable, our team continues to work tirelessly throughout the year to keep this performance metric as high as possible. And just an additional note on paternity, we do what's called in-house paternity testing. We've done it for a number of years since 2008, in addition to having a vendor who provides support with paternity testing. But since we started that in-house paternity program in 2008, our team has collected over 171,000 samples for paternity testing since it started. So I just thought that was a great number I wanted to share. All right, so looking ahead at our current year, federal year 2025 performance goals, each year we set some goals for our teams to strive for. Current support orders, and paternity are the main ones that we set, but we added an additional one this year for our team, which is total collections, that we wanted them to increase our total collections by 1% or higher. 1% may not sound like a lot, but that reflects millions of dollars, additional dollars for families. So in addition to those normal goals, this new goal of total collections will help the division in multiple ways, including increasing current support and arrears performance. And it also gives us the opportunity for increased earning of incentive funds. But most importantly, it would reflect additional payments going out to the families that we serve. So now I'll move on to a few program updates.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm glad we're achieved that above 90% level.
Sure.
And that's very important for us. When I look back at 2017 and 2019, we were at 97%. What were the practices that were working then I'm proud we're at above 90%, but because that obviously right in the pandemic we hit a low ebb of 84.
Right.
What were we doing then that we can do now, or are there best practices that we were doing then that we could reinstitute? I'm brainstorming. I just asking because you know better than we do.
So I'll start off by saying about 85% of our overall paternity establishment performance is actually handled outside of our division. We have a number of sources that feed into this number. So while we work very hard on all of the cases we have that have children who require paternity to be established, there's also a number of parents who don't come to us for our services. So they may get paternity established in another way through the court, through a voluntary paternity acknowledgement process. And so we have a great partnership with the Office of Vital Records, as well as with the hospitals throughout the state. We do a lot of outreach with them to educate them on the importance of the paternity acknowledgement process. And then they in turn educate the parents when they have new moms and dads on that process and the benefits it will bring to the child. And so we've definitely seen, as we've had our own trends with the number of those paternity acknowledgements throughout the state. Other things that feed into our paternity establishment include adoptions and also legitimations that weren't a result of the paternity acknowledgement process. So there's a lot of factors that go into the number, and we certainly watch those numbers closely. I would say as far as our internal practices, I think we're doing what we did then and then more. We've implemented some new things. The pandemic, was a really tough time to get through, but also sparked a lot of creativity. We hold special events with parents. We try to meet them where they are. But I will say one of the challenges is just getting that response from the parents. we may have, you know, the mother and the child that come for testing, but we are having a hard time getting the father to come, the putative father to come for testing. So that can be challenging, and we've tried a lot of different things around that. Our offices, again, get really creative. A lot of times if we can get someone on the phone, that helps. But a lot of people don't want to answer phone calls from numbers that they do not know. So I would say the engagement piece is a big piece, and something we hear kind of throughout the state, that their parents are not responding to our request for them to come and meet with us, talk with us about the testing. So again, we're working on, you know, are there new things we can do? We talk a lot with other states as well, because they experience similar challenges as we do. And so, you know, it's kind of like a community of learning. We're all trying to figure out the best way we can reach our customers and get them what they need. But yes, for this measure, there's certainly a lot of factors, and we are constantly brainstorming what can we do in this area.
Good. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that you're looking at other states for best practices, and I don't know what their numbers are, but
Right.
obviously that 90% baseline is a huge, you know, level to hit.
Right.
And I'm glad we're above it again, but
I'll add one additional thing here too. There's two different ways that states can report their paternity establishment to the federal office. So the way that we've elected to report it, as mentioned, we have a lot of different factors that go into ours. We have that partnership with Vital Records so that we can count paternity acknowledgements, adoptions, and those other methods towards our numbers. There is another way we could report paternity data, and we are looking at, you know, if we might be in a place in the coming years where we could switch to that other method of reporting paternity. So there are, you know, some different factors that go into that, of course, but we just feel like, you know, we want to have that option and feel comfortable with either method of reporting. So that's something else we're looking at. Sure. So for our program updates, we've talked about system modernization in some prior board meetings, but it's been a little while since we've given an update. So I just wanted to bring you all up to speed on what we've been working on over the last few months. So in the amended state fiscal year 2024 budget, the DCSS system modernization project was designated as a technology empowerment fund project, and we were appropriated funding for the first year of the project. The Technology Empowerment Fund, or TEF for short, falls under GTA's, Georgia Technology Authority's oversight. And the TEF was established by legislators to provide funding for various projects and systems that will demonstrate cost savings and improved service delivery through technology and training. Special advisory input and oversight are also directed to key technology-enabled projects administered by TEF. So the TEF team continues to provide oversight, guidance, and support as we have developed our procurement requirements, and they have continued the support to our team as we've moved into the solicitation and evaluation phases of our procurements. It's a really great partnership. We definitely appreciate the TEF team and Georgia Technology Authority for all of their support. These modernization projects are a really heavy lift, and so it's great to work alongside some individuals that have that experience and are working with other state partners on those type of projects. TEF provides quarterly updates to the Legislative Oversight Committee, and currently our project is rated green for overall project schedule and budget. In state fiscal year 2024, we procured vendor North Highland to provide support for readiness activities. And we finished this contract on time and on budget, having collaboratively completed 110 deliverables that were focused on resource and governance planning, organizational change management, business process reengineering, and requests for proposals. Another major milestone is that we received federal funding approval for our modernization project with the Federal Office of Child Support Services accepting our implementation advanced planning document. So that's a step every state has to go through when you want to do a system modernization project for child support services. You have to get the Fed's approval for the federal funding that they're going to provide. So we did receive that, and that does make up the bulk of the funding for the project. They provide 66% funding to us. So we are currently in the procurement phase of our project. It's a very busy time. Our teams that are evaluating procurements that are going on. So we are partnering with the Department of Administrative Services and the Georgia Technology Authority to procure services for 4 suppliers: Project Management Office, Quality Assurance, Design, Development, and Implementation, and Independent Verification and Validation Services. So we look forward to providing additional updates to you all once the successful suppliers are identified and all of our notices of award have been posted. On the next slide, you'll see some pictures from a recent training summit that we held in Macon at the Methodist Home back in October. That was the reason I couldn't attend the last board meeting because I fell at the same time. So this was a great event. Our theme was navigating change together. So with the modernization project, that's going to be a huge change, but really just focused on change as a whole. We experience changes every day at Child Support. So the event was very well received. I talked to a number of our attendees, which included agents and leaders from across the state, and they were just really excited to be able to get together and network. And we had some really engaging workshops as well. So a big thank you to all of our DCSS team, as well as the training and professional development team who worked really hard to put together this summit. And many thanks to DHS leadership for their support of this event. And we actually have a planning meeting Monday to talk about potential summits for 2025 that we plan to have for more training opportunities for our teams. And last but not least, 2024 marked the 15-year anniversary of our Parental Accountability Court program. So we were so excited to be able to go to the Capitol and take a picture with the governor and first lady in December to commemorate this accomplishment. Some of our attendees included some of you, our board members. Thank you all for being there, as well as some members of DHS leadership and many of our judges, attorneys, and our PAC coordinators and leaders were able to be there as well. So thank you to everyone who was able to attend. And again, we were just so excited to reach this milestone and greatly appreciate all of the support of this important program.
Great program.
Yes, it certainly is. So that is my last slide. I'm open to take any questions you all may have.
Any questions? Anybody? Appreciate your good review.
Thank you so much.
So next administrative report by Christopher Henry.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Before I begin, I just wanted to acknowledge that I asked my colleague to join me. Her name is Beth Vineyard. She's the director of the Residential Child Care Licensing Unit. She will join me to address any questions that you may have about any programmatic issues. Okay. So next slide, please. So the roadmap for today. So we're going to discuss, we're going to review the rule change procedures, do a review of the proposed rule changes, discuss the public comment period, and then go to the final approval of the rule amendments regarding the child caring institutions and the maternity homes, and then make a request to the board. Next slide, please. So the rule change procedure, it consists of the board considers the motion to publish proposed rules, which we did at the last meeting. Then there's a 30-day public comment period, which is followed by a public hearing, and then a motion for final adoption of the proposed rules. And then we send the final rule to the Secretary of State. Next slide. So why are we proposing these changes? We're proposing these changes because we want to ensure that the CCI and MH rules are consistent with the new statutory provisions related to the Commercial Sexual Exploitation Recovery Centers, which I'll refer to as CSERC, and the Qualified Residential Treatment Programs, which I'll refer to as QRTP. We also want to streamline the regulations, update terms and provisions, and make certain regulatory requirements less burdensome for providers where it was safe to do so. Next slide, please. With respect to the QRTP, we included all new provisions that include new requirements that a QRTP be licensed as a CCI, be accredited, have a trauma-informed treatment model. I'm not going to read all of it. It's there for you guys. With respect to the Commercial Sexual Exploitation Recovery Center, we included a new requirement that a CSERC obtain and maintain certification as a victims assistance program. Next slide, please. With respect to the maternity home rules, we added a provision that reflects that the Commercial Sexual Exploitation Recovery Center and a maternity supportive housing residents are not subject to licensure of maternity homes. We defined Commercial Sexual Exploitation Recovery Center We defined maternity supportive housing residents. We added provision that prohibits children from co-sleeping or bed sharing. Before you go to the next slide, we also added provision that relates to all inspections of vehicles. Now it must be recorded on a department issued form, and that form must be signed by a certified inspector or a mechanic. Next slide, please. So to the public comment period, it ranged from October 10th to November 10th of 2024. And on October 29th, we had a public hearing. Out of those two instances, we received a total of 13 comments, including one comment addressing a firearm safety provision. Next slide, please. Now I'm gonna make a request to the board for the motion for final adoption on the rules and regulations for child caring institutions. Rules 290-2-5.01 to 0.23, and then rules and regulations for maternity homes, rules 290-2-29-0.02, 0.04, and 0.21. Next slide, please. Are there any questions?
What was done with the 13 comments in the firearm?
We addressed those in the packet that you have here. We addressed those, all those, you'll see that it ranged from simplistic issues as to whether or not, there's now we've extended, there's a comprehensive examination for children that was required to be done within 72 hours. We extended that to 10 calendar days. The commenter asked if it was business days or calendar days, but we had clearly stated in the rule that it was calendar days. It went to more extreme and more significant issues as to whether or not the firearm provision violated the Second Amendment rights of an individual. We found that it did not.
Meaning they're not supposed to have a firearm on site.
So,
Or what?
the firearm the provision is in twofold. One part of it is that in a living unit where children stay, you're not supposed, there's no firearms allowed in the living unit of a CCI. However, on the premises of a CCI, you can have a firearm, but the firearm has to be stored or locked in a cabinet, and it has to be in an area inaccessible to children. So you can have a firearm, but again, it has to be locked and stored away.
Where would it be if it's not within the premises?
Well, if it's not on the living unit, because the CCI. it
Where
can
they
be
live, the
outside.
bedrooms,
Right,
all that.
exactly.
But it could be out in the garage or something.
Well, it's areas for staff of the CCI. It can be in the area for staff, for example.
Okay.
Further questions? Thank you.
You bet. And we'll be going over those rules when we're in official session. Thank you. All right, so now. I guess we've got a scheduled break. Is that right? So why don't we take 10 minutes?
Sure.
10 minutes, okay, good. All right, and then we'll call to order and start over. All right. All right, then I think I'm supposed to call this meeting to order. Is that right? All right, so Department of Human Services meetings, call to order. And I guess the first thing we need to do is the October 9th meeting minutes have been distributed to you. Are there any corrections and is there a motion? Any
Correction, we
corrections?
accept. Second.
All right, I move, let's see, second, it's moved and properly, seconded that the Board of Human Services minutes for the October 9th meeting will be approved. If there's any discussion, we'll now take a vote. Any discussion? All those in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No? All right. So meeting passed, or that passed. So now we get into the, fun stuff, right? The board will now consider the adoption rule, the adoption of rule amendments for residential childcare licensing related to Rule Chapter 290-2, specifically Rules 290-2-5-01 through 290-2-5-.23 of the rules and regulations for child caring institutions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mm-mm.
I got you. I'd be happy to do that.
Read.
I moved that the proposed amendments to Rule Chapter 290-2, specifically Rules 290-2-5.01 through 290-2-5.23 of the rules of the Georgia Department of Human Services entitled Rules and Regulations for Child Caring Institutions as presented for public comment on October 10th, 2024, be approved and adopted, certified by the Commissioner, and filed with the Secretary of State as provided by law with an effective date of January 27, 2025.
Thank you.
Second moves.
All right, and Barbie seconds it. And so it is moved and properly seconded that the proposed rule amendments from residential childcare licensing be approved and adopted. Is there any discussion? All right, anybody on the phone here? Okay, good. All right. We will now take the vote. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Phone people? Okay, good. All right. So motion passed. All right. The next one is proposed amendments to rules and regulations for child caring institutions are hereby approved and adopted by the board. Next, the board will now consider the adoption of rule amendments from residential child care licensing related to Rule Chapter 290-2, specifically Rules 290-2-29-202 and 290-2-29-04 and 290-2-29-.21 of the rules and regulations for maternity homes. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the proposed amendments of Rule Chapter 290-2, specifically Rules 290-2-29-.02 and 290-2-29-.04 and 290-2-29-.21 of the rules of the Georgia Department of Human Services entitled Rules and Regulations for Maternity Homes as just presented for public comment on October 10, 2024, be approved and adopted, certified by the Commissioner and filed with the Secretary of State as provided with law with an effective date of January 27, 2025.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Barbie seconds. It is moved and properly seconded that the proposed rule amendments from residential child care licensing be approved and adopted. Is there any discussion? All right, we shall now take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, Jack. All those opposed? None. So, the proposed amendments in the rules, regulations for maternity homes are hereby approved and adopted by the board. Now, new business,
Approve the minutes of.
Hmm?
Do we approve the amendments of the October 9th meeting?
Yeah, we've already done that. We've already done it. All right, any discussions that we have on any other issues or topics?
how are we gonna handle Chairman, how are we gonna handle our subcommittees or the work committees? What's gonna be our plan of action with that? Are we gonna do it virtually? We're gonna get together somewhere or what? And
I think that'll be up to whoever's in charge of each one of those committees. And there's the committees, it's the aging side of it, and then there's the child side of it. And so I think, does everybody know which one they're on? Y'all expressed concerns or not concerns, expressed interest. And that's been communicated back. So I would just say by the next board meeting, that I would hope that each one of the committees have met, establish who the leader is, and then come to the next board meeting with arenas of interest and what they need, what they want to delve into. That would be my suggestion. If y'all got any other suggestions, any, Wes, I know you're on the aging side.
Yeah, with Jack and Monica and I are gonna get on the call Friday, try to lay out what our plan is for this. And, Chairman Smith, I think the thought that you had was you just wanted the board to become more familiar as a whole with a particular department in the organization of DHS.
Yes, and really push towards any particular improvements that the respective leaders within those responsibilities have. So we wanted to be more, not only just knowledgeable about what each department's working on, but actually utilize the expertise of this group to help encourage, challenge, help to solve whatever the biggest issues are. So that was the heart and spirit behind it. So, all right. Any other questions about that? That's good. Thank you, Dave, for bringing that up.
When is the next board meeting? Do we know?
Yeah,
It is April 9th, Wednesday, April 9th.
April 9th. Should we, maybe have sent out again, all of those, the dates of all the meetings this year? We've established that. We got y'all's input as to what would work best. And then we, through Emma, have, sent that out. So thank you for resending that out.
Yeah.
And then Emma, you're also sort of capturing when different department heads are sharing information with us and they're gonna follow up. You're coordinating that to be sure that they're gonna send all the information to you and then you can send it out to us.
The next couple of weeks, you can expect an email from me with any follow-up questions.
Okay, good. And then we got this one real fast, the state plan. He was on it. So that was good. That's pretty fast turnaround. So I appreciate that. And
that's a lot of writing in a short period of time.
you got all the copy and all that stuff. That's really good. So thank you for that. All right. Any other particular issues that y'all would like to talk about? You know, I would only say that, of course, when folks cannot be physically at the meeting, we understand that. We all have to deal with that sometimes. But it would be a hope and desire that everybody could come to the meeting. Not that it was be expected that you wouldn't be here, but it would be expected that you would be here. So and certainly, you know, we know that many times something comes up, so that's totally understandable. But Emma, when we send those announcements out, I want to encourage people to come, not to not come. So I'm not trying to fuss about anything, but just thank you all for your participation, whether you're here or whether you're there. So, all right, any questions,
Just
Jack?
thank Emma and Emily for the
Yes.
for the good and consistent communication.
Yes, thank you.
And prompt communication,
Yeah.
you know.
Consistent.
So when I was late, I called her, said I'm gonna be late. So she answered her phone, so that was good. As she always does. All right, so I guess motion for adjournment.
So we move. Second.